Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm parent coach, mother of four, and your host, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where you will learn that even for parenting experts like me, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that fabulous behavior and amazing relationships are right on the other side of that realization. If you're working your butt off to do right by your kid, honor yourself, and go beyond the BS around you, you are my person, and this podcast is for you. Full disclosure, I'm a sometimes potty talker, and we deal with the challenge of raising kids here. This podcast is for grown-ups, so stick your earbuds in and let's do this. Welcome into another episode of the podcast, listeners. I am excited to be recording another series of episodes for you. It is the last day of July in 2026, and I am recording a series of episodes today that will go through August. Updates from the lake, since I have been at the lake in Traverse City, Northern Michigan. If you don't know that by now, this is your first episode that you're listening to. I feel like I've been talking about it until my lips fall off. I've been up at the lake for since May 20th. So what is that? June 20th, at least 2 months. And I'm getting ready to head back down pretty soon, back down to Denver, spend the rest of the year there, except for I'll be back at the lake in October to run the retreat. So for anyone who's been on the fence about the retreat, thinking about the retreat, daydreaming about the retreat, telling yourself you can't come on the retreat, there is one more spot left in the October 8th to 12th dates that I am very excited and eager and focused on filling. So if you are on the fence, if you've been sort of biding your time, this is the time. August is when invoices go out and all of that great stuff. Of course, we always have last minute people that kind of want to jump on board towards the end, but it's so much better if we can at least have our core groups sorted out now. It allows you to come to the pre-retreat meetings and get all your questions answered and get all my information on like what to pack and what to bring and what to expect. And you get to also have a one-on-one retreat session with me where we help you kind of get clear on what your intentions are. You can share anything with me that you feel like it's important for me to know before the retreat starts. Help me customize everything just for how you want it to be. I'm getting intake forms in now from the people who already are signed up, telling me their food preferences. And I got a comment last year, just like, wow, your food preferences section on the intake form is really detailed. Because yeah, it is. Like, I want to know if you're allergic to something, but I also just want to know if you like hate something. And then also there's like a whole section in there. I'm like, what are your favorite morning drinks? Is it tea? Is it hot water with lemon? Is it coffee? Is it decaf coffee? Do you want creamer? Do you need non-dairy creamer? Like, morning drinks are very important. And I used to think that was just unique to our house, but it's not. Morning drinks are really important to everyone. In our family, especially with the kids, I always be like, would you like a warm morning drink? And it could be anything. It could be chai, could be tea, could be hot chocolate with little baby marshmallows. Yeah, the sooner you sign up, the sooner you have time to just really settle into all of those little creature comforts, that it is going to be this like amazing sort of landing strip for you when you arrive in October. And just spent the last couple of weeks meeting with vendors here. I'm so excited about the excursions that I have put together. They're very unique. I've never done them before. And also I think they're just unique for retreats. Like, they're not the typical, go to a winery or something like that, which we also do that sometimes, and it's delightful. But we're not doing wineries this year. But don't worry, will be plenty of wine at the house. But yeah, so and I love that part too, because I get to just build connections and relationships with local artisans and all of that stuff. Between putting together the gift basket and putting together all of the excursions, I feel like I've like connected with at least like 24 different like local artisans and business owners and things like that in Traverse City every summer. And it makes me feel really good. And I'm starting to feel like I really like have a community here and stuff like that, which is really exciting. So if you're thinking about coming on the retreat, there is still a spot left. Hit me up. I will get you enrolled so quick, you won't even believe it. Super painless. And because that spot is situated the way that it is, it's a really, really great price and all of that great stuff. So anywho, that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today, the topic for today, is this idea of this is how it was said to me in I have a little pod of Enneagram practitioners that we sort of spend time connecting as peers and supporting each other and stuff like that. In our last meeting, the one of the girls in the pod said, "Today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison." And I was like, that is the name of a podcast episode if I've ever heard one. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to kind of give you a little bit of an orientation of what does that even mean. So I have to tell you, like maybe like once a quarter when I'm working with my practitioner individually, I say something to her like, you have got to be sick of hearing me say this to you, or you have got to be sick of hearing me talk about X, Y, and Z, my husband, my mom, my whatever. The challenges, it's always the same, right? And it can feel really frustrating to think like I have been doing this work or, trying to improve myself or whatever for years and years and years and years. And yet here I am right back at the beginning. And there are so many concepts embroiled in this, what we're going to talk about today. So I'm actually going to try to break it down so that I really touch on, because all of them, I think, get at the same thing from different angles. And so I'm going to give you lots of different examples. And these are my little mini confessions for you today that I think are going to really illustrate this stuff. And then I'm going to kind of break it down for you from all those different angles. So the first quote unquote confession for you is just 2 days ago, my husband, my son, and I were sitting down on the dock on the water, and we were talking about like the different things that our family, like my mom, my dad, whatever, my husband's mom, like whatever people in our family do that were driving us crazy. And all of us, we were sort of like almost not on purpose egging each other on, but it would just be like someone would be like, "Oh, God, this person, like I'm trying to sit and have this like quiet morning. And I like to sit and read my book and drink my coffee and just be in the quiet of the morning on the back porch. And this person always comes out onto the porch and just starts talking to me no matter what. Even if I have like a book completely in front of my face and it's blatantly obvious that I'm trying to do something, be by myself, they always interrupt. And then the next person is like, yeah, and so, blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, within like 5 minutes, all of us are just like totally elevated and in this like total, like complaining, annoyed, venting space, which is fine. I mean, that happens sometimes, but Mike was really funny because like after all of that stuff, he goes, you know what the worst thing about all of this is? Like all three of us have been in therapy for years and years and years and years. And we know like that this is not about us, that all the stuff that we're complaining about that these other people are doing, it's just about them. It has nothing to do with us. There's nothing we can do to change it. We know all of that stuff. And yet here we are sitting at the end of the dock on a beautiful day, just ranting about it. And it was that feeling of just like, why did I even spend all of this time? Or like, am I ever going to be healed or zen or whatever the word is that you want to think of? Like, what are we doing here? So that's like example number one of these little moments. I also I think it might have even been that same day. So if you don't know this, like the clients that I work with privately, we, in addition to doing coaching sessions, we use an app called Marco Polo where we can send each other messages like in between sessions. So when you work with me, you basically have me in your back pocket 24/7. I'm getting messages from clients every day, just either sharing a breakthrough or talking through something that they're feeling struggling with, or they're doing some of the work that we talked about in our last session, but they've gotten stumped or whatever. They always have me to chat with, and kind of we keep the dialogue going between sessions. And just that same morning, I had gotten a Marco Polo from a client in response to me sort of like reflecting a few things back to her in her in my message to her. Her message back to me was like, my first thought about everything you shared in your Marco Polo is, do you ever get sick of saying the same thing over and over again to your clients? And I was laughing about it because, that's how it is. That's how it is for all of us. Like in our work, we don't change. Like the core crux of the matter, like seed of wound or the seed of like misunderstanding about the world or myopic lens that we have on the world, that doesn't change. Like that's what we were born with, and that will continue to be our lens. Like that, we will continue to come back to that home base as the epicenter of our suffering or our challenges forever. So of course it's going to happen that my clients bring up the same questions, the same dilemmas, or it'll be a new dilemma and they're looking at it through the same lens that we looked at XYZ dilemma last year. And so we have to come back and say like, wait a minute, let's look at how you're looking at this. Here we go. And then it's not the first time that I've got a message from a client saying like, do you get sick of just saying the same thing over and over again? The answer is no, or also sometimes yes. And that's my work to get my coaching hat back on well and solid so that I can be in integrity with how I'm, showing up for my clients and stuff like that. But of course, I'm a human being. But yeah, just another example of this feeling of like, am I even going anywhere? Am I making any progress? Why does my coach have to say the same thing to me 3,000 times? Why does my whatever practitioner, why are we still talking about this? I'm sick. This is a direct quote from me that I say very often about certain topics. I'm sick of the sound of my own voice on this topic, but I can't stop myself. I'm still upset about it. I'm still not figured out about it. I still need to work through it. So here I go again. Let's fricking talk about it again. Geez Louise. That sensation, if you are in the work right now and you have that sensation, you are right on time. You are right on target. You are so normal. And the other vantage point I want to offer you is that you're actually not coming back to this. It's not like you're back at square one. You're not really coming back to zero. So this is the kind of thing that I love. One of the really, really cool things about the Enneagram. So you have heard me talk about the Enneagram a lot in terms of personality. The Enneagram of Personality, where we talk about the 9 points and what the characteristics are of people who are fixated at each of those 9 points. And we're looking at it through personality. There's a whole nother way to look at the Enneagram, which is called the Enneagram of Process, which basically says that when we are going through some sort of evolution or growth, we are kind of moving around the circle of the Enneagram from point to point to point. And then we kind of get back up to back to 9. 9 is the start. 9 is the top of the circle. If you're looking at the video, you can see me making a really lame circle with my hands. There you go. 9 is at the top. And we start at 9 and we go around the circle and we come back to 9 and then we start again. So not to get too far into the weeds about that, because that's not the topic for today's session or today's episode, but it will be in future episodes. I told you I'm recording a series right now, but to just really think about it in terms of harmonics. That's all we need to think about. So if we took the circle of the Enneagram and put it so it was horizontal, like a plate, and you think that you go around the circle in some sort of evolution and you come back to 9, you don't stay in that plane. You kind of go up an octave, and then you go up an octave, and then you go up an octave. So there's this like familiarity when you get back to this place of like, oh, wherever I go, here I am. Well, here I am again, ranting about my family at the end of the dock or whatever. And it's really easy to think like, well, I've gone on all of these walkabouts. I've worked my butt off. I've spent all of this money and time trying to improve myself, and I'm right back where I started. But that's really not true. The evolution that people go through is much more of like a spiral that goes up and up and up. But we completely, absolutely do revisit familiar territory with a new mind or a new evolutionarily stage that we're in or whatever. And I actually explained this to someone this summer in terms of our kids. So you think about like when your kids are in school, let's say they learn about Christopher Columbus. Let's just say they learn about Christopher Columbus when they're like in first grade, let's say. And what do they learn about Christopher Columbus? Well, he sailed the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He came from Spain. He thought he landed in India, but he really was in North America, whatever, like very simplistic stuff. And that's what that person is capable of grokking at that moment. And then nowadays we might even say like there's some pretty dark things about Christopher Columbus or whatever, but we're not going to get into all the minutia because we're talking to a first grader. But that's not the only time that your first grader learns about Christopher Columbus. They go through a couple more years of their lives, they mature, they become, let's say, a fourth grader. And now their class is doing another unit on American history. And Christopher Columbus comes up. Well, now we're going to be talking to these kids about Christopher Columbus in a way that's appropriate for a fourth grader. This fourth grader is now able to engage with the concept of Christopher Columbus in ways he never could when he was a first grader. And again and again. And when you're in college, you take an American history course for perhaps, and oh, lo and behold, we're going to talk about Christopher Columbus again. But guess what? That is going to be a far more nuanced, mature, evolved, subtle conversation that has room for so much more expansiveness, so much more of the full scale of human comprehension and human emotion and conclusions to draw, and even invitation to draw multiple conclusions and all of that stuff, than a conversation with a first grader would be about Christopher Columbus. So that conversation that I had at the end of the dock with my husband and my son, yeah, here we are again, whining about our family. Christopher Columbus again, give me a break. But that conversation I had with my family just a few days ago was very different than the one that I would have had 10 years ago or the one that I would have had 20 years ago. It was shorter. It was much more compassionate. It was much more like accepting instead of trying to fix or change or draw some conclusion or take some action in response to it. That's what I would have done 10 years ago. I would have been like, this is unacceptable. People can't act this way. What should we do? You know what? Next year, let's not invite those people. Or, you know what we need to do is have a family meeting and tell those people what's wrong with them. Or we need to set a boundary and make sure that they never do that stuff again. Like none of that happened in this conversation. That's what would have happened 10 years ago. 2 days ago, it was just like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Well, what are you going to do? Right. And even, being able to conceive of the fact that like, maybe it's really not that big of a deal. It just bothers me. And that's maybe something about me. And why does it bug me so much when somebody interrupts me when I'm, trying to read a book or whatever it is. Right. So the truth is like, we don't, in some ways, we really don't stray very far from who we are ever, no matter how much work we do on ourselves. And in other ways, we grow by leaps and bounds. But here's why I thought it was so cool. What this person in my Enneagram pod said was, today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison, is because that's why the harmonics happen. That's why we go up an octave, is because okay, so we're going around the Enneagram. We started at 9, which is this idea of like what I want to do this thing. I want to grow around this thing. I want something, you know, something new, something different. I have this feeling that it's time for a change. Okay. And then we go around the Enneagram again. And before we get back to point 9, we end at point 8, right? Because if you're going around the Enneagram, it's like 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you get back to 9. Okay, so 8 is basically this sense of like, I got what I wanted. Here I am. I've achieved my thing. And lo and behold, I still haven't quite scratched the itch that I had. So you see people doing this all the time. Like, you know what? I don't know what's a good example. Like I really want to get in shape or something like that. They do all of this stuff. They start working out in getting fit and stuff like that. They're going around the Enneagram and they get to point 8 where it's like, oh wow, I am in way better shape than I was when I started this journey. But you know what? I still actually don't feel good about my body. And now we're back at point 9 again, ready to engage in like, well, what more is needed here? Or what does it turn out was really missing for me? And maybe for this person, it's like, now I want to look at my diet. But also might be, I guess this maybe isn't about my body after all. Maybe it's about my relationship with myself. But either way, they embark on a new sort of tier in their work. So why do we say today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison? Well, because two things. First of all, the octaves, like I said, you get to this place, you get to your destination, and pretty soon that thing that was this amazing, expansive freedom that you had looked for and created and worked so hard for and finally achieved, it feels great. And then it doesn't feel great anymore. And so it becomes this new source of discomfort or suffering that then propels you forward into your next iteration. So that's one reason why we say today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison. But the other reason is because of your ego, which is really to say the same thing in a different way. Whatever kind of break, so I'm going to give you an example from because I know how my brain works better than I know how anyone else's brain works. I can talk to you about my thing, but like, let's say I have a session with my practitioner. I have this amazing breakthrough where it's like, oh my gosh, everything that has been causing me all of these problems with my kids, let's say, has come because I've been so controlling of them. And I realize that I really don't want to do that. And that I could see now how me trying to like be in charge of them and tell them what to do has caused, all of these ripple effects that were really not great for me or my kids. So I have this awareness. It's like an epiphany, right? Today's breakthrough, this breakthrough of like, oh, trying to control, having an agenda, trying to be in charge of other people and tell them what to do. That has caused all of this, you know, suffering. I see that now. Aha. And it's like, oh, the clouds part, the sun shines through. You have this like, oh, realization. And you're like, oh, it's so clear to me now. I get it now. Well, the thing is, your ego is hanging out right on the side, like just sitting on your shoulder. And your ego is like this super sticky, pernicious, like sometimes I use the word of it's very graspy. Sometimes I almost think about it as like the stickiest glue that exists in the world. Sometimes I think about it as a black hole that like sucks everything into itself. But whatever happens, whatever breakthrough I have, this like aha moment, my ego grabs onto it and sort of, contorts it into the next layer of my ego. So, I should not be so controlling with my family, and trying to be controlling has really caused all of these issues. And I can see that now, clarity, breakthrough, epiphany, blah, 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 blah. And what does my ego do? My ego takes that, it co-opts that and says, okay, so therefore, new rule, you can never tell your kids what to do. That's bad parenting. So from now on, you are disallowed from telling them what to do. And if you do tell them what to do, you are being a bad parent. That's what we just learned from this breakthrough that you had. And here you go. I've constructed my prison, the prison of I am not allowed to tell my kids, go pick up your shoes or brush your teeth or, whatever, do your homework. I'm not allowed to say that anymore because I made a rule about it because I had this epiphany. And so our ego, we're constantly like breaking through and then co-opting that into rules, or in the case of a one, I'm an Enneagram type one, but everybody does whatever their ego does with the breakthroughs that they have. And it can be very frustrating. It makes perfect sense that my clients are saying like, aren't you sick of telling me this? Or how come I have to talk to you about this a million times? Like, we already talked about this. I know, I remember you saying this a year ago. It is very frustrating because what we're watching ourselves like grow, and then sort of like, it can seem like grow and then regress, grow and then regress. And maybe that's true in some ways, but it's definitely not you're back to zero. It's more like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But what I actually think is more true is that you grow and then you are a human. And then you sort of like break free from your personality, and then you have a personality. And then you break free from your personality, and then you have a personality. You can't stop yourself from having an ego, and you can't change the way that your ego interacts with the world. That's your lens. That's your take on the world, your fundamental fixation, your fundamental misunderstanding or contorted viewpoint on the world. You'll always have it. You'll always have a personality. You'll always have an ego. You will always be having these little moments where we take the glasses off and then they come back on again. And, the worst thing that could happen would be for us to see that and say, okay, well, self-growth work is bullshit. Or, there's no point in working with a therapist or with a coach, or what's the difference? I'm just going to be exactly the same no matter what. It's not true, because even though you can still see me putting my glasses back on and looking at the world through my lens and making rules for myself and stuff, anybody, you could ask anybody who's known me for more than like 5 years, and they could tell you that they see also that, yes, sure, I'm still me, but I'm also very, very different than I used to be. Both of those things are true. And it's because I'm working my sort of octaves. I'm going up and up and up, but I'm never, and if you're listening to the audio without the video, you won't see what I'm doing with my hands. But like, if you imagine this sort of like spiral going around and around the Enneagram and going higher and higher and higher into the world, it kind of makes this like sort of column or like cylinder. I'm always somewhere in that cylinder. I'm never going to be like over 10 miles outside of the cylinder in like a different universe or something like that. The cylinder is me. Like, I'm always going to be me. I'm always going to be working this stuff through my own idiom. And so both of those things can be true, that you're growing by leaps and bounds and you're also right back where you started. That all can happen. And I can tell you a really concrete example of a big change for me in this is that when I first started noticing this, maybe it was like 5 years ago, where I was like, oh my God, I'm like, everything I realize, it's just getting sucked into my ego and contorted and twisted into this sinister egoic version of itself. I could see it happening. And so that was my breakthrough, this seeing it happening, realizing the pattern. I had this breakthrough, and well, what did I do with that? I made a rule about that. That's not allowed to happen anymore. I'm not going to let these things happen. I'm not going to make rules anymore when I have a breakthrough, which I, of course, at the time did not realize, like, I just made a rule based on I made a rule that I'm not allowed to make rules, and that's what I did. And when I would realize, like, oh, damn it, it happened again, it was just like devastation. It felt like so hopeless. It felt like I had been trying desperately, clawing my way out, up the side of this cliff, and I had fallen all the way back down to the very beginning where my car was parked in the parking lot. And it was a real blow. Instead of now, most of the time, don't get me wrong, I still do get frustrated and all that stuff. Like I said, am a human being, but way more often now, I'm able to see that pattern happening and just be able to say, yep, There it goes again. Here I am. Oh, I'm doing it right now in the course of just this conversation. I've had an epiphany and made a conclusion based on that. I've had an epiphany, I've made a rule based on that. I've had an epiphany and I've tried to then make some sort of generalization about how the world works or whatever. It's happening minute to minute to minute. And all you can do is watch. You can't stop it. And if you judge it, you get in your own way. So that's my sort of lesson for you today. And probably maybe when you heard me say in the very beginning of the episode, today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison, it sounds really, I don't know, like defeatist maybe, or cynical or nihilistic or something like that. Hopefully, after we've gone through this conversation together, you're seeing that today's breakthrough is tomorrow's prison. That's just how it works. It's just like saying, like, today's daytime is going to turn into nighttime. The sunrise will then eventually turn into the sunset, and then there'll be a new sunrise, right? Like, it's all leads into the next thing. It all is just part of the process. And the prison part is just as important and just as intrinsic to the flow as the breakthroughs are. So I hope that sticks with you today. And I hope I'm sending out all of the like intention and manifestation energy out into the world, that there's somebody listening to this episode right now who is ready to go for it and reach out to me about that one spot that's waiting for you for the retreat. It's not too late. And I just can't wait to be with you in October, give you a hug in person, give you a nice warm morning drink that first morning that you wake up, to look out over the lake and dive into this stuff in a really immersive way, and just see where it takes us. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye. The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long, or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.